Hello, welcome to Conversations with Educators. I'm your host, Jerome Ellison, and today I have a special guest, Monique Maylor, school counselor. Thank you, Monique, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. I want to start with a quick game. All right, this game is called Pass or Fail. So I give you two options, and the option that you would pass, the one you pick over the other, you just say that one. So that's the one that you would pass. The other one just has to fail. All right.
Okay.
So math or science, which one passes?
Science.
Reading or writing, which one passes?
Writing.
Basketball or football?
Oh, come on. Can I click an A for that?
No. Pick one.
So nervous. I love them both. I'm gonna say football.
Football. Okay. Netflix or cable TV?
Oh, cable TV.
All right, last one. Hip hop or R&B?
Again, really? That's what you're gonna do to me?
Tough one.
You know, technically, I'm a '90s. I'm a '90s kid, where hip hop and R&B was combined.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm such a romantic at heart. I love me a good slow song from back in the day. So I'm gonna have to pass on the hip hop. Okay. I'm going with R&B.
R&B is gonna pass. All right, I get it. All right, so let's get started. So when did you know you wanted to be a school counselor and why?
Got it. So I was about 21. I had just graduated from Stony Brook. I went to Stony Brook to be a physical therapist, and it just wasn't for me, right? I couldn't see myself doing physical therapy. I wanted to do something more community-based, and I ended up changing my major to Africana Studies, and I really didn't know what I was going to do with that. And so I became an Africana Studies major, and I just loved the study of the whole, African diaspora and just everything I was learning. And then I didn't know what to do, and I knew I wanted to be in community, right? I knew I wanted to work with kids, but I didn't want to be a teacher per se, right? And a really close friend of mine at the time was like, why don't you be a guidance counselor? And God bless that person for using them. And I decided at that point, and I went to get my master's in counseling and haven't looked back since.
I love that. I love that story. So my next question would be this. I know guidance counselors now more than ever are needed in our school systems. And I say now people are more aware of the importance of school counselors in our school system because everyone's coming back from the pandemic, students, teachers, everyone needs that support and someone to talk to. So I would first start with this, right? So in your experience so far, what has been your either funniest, the most memorable, or best moment you've had so far?
Since COVID, or just period overall?
Period in your career.
So this may be hard to believe, but we still have a lot of first generation graduates, right? I think a lot of times we forget that people aren't used to going to college, right? And I had a young lady who was on track not to graduate, right? But she was going to be the first one. I mean, every family member was vested in her, right? And New York has Regents exams, and she was struggling with those Regents exams. And there was one Regents exam in particular. It was her global Regents that she had to take, had to pass. She had been struggling with it since 10th grade. And she tried. She did everything she could, right? And she took the test, and she got really nervous, right? So we found out that she passed, right? And she had passed by by 3-4 points, right? So what we did was we called her mom, and we told the mom first, right? And the mom was just crying. Mom was just so happy that she had passed. And then we wanted to work with the mom to surprise her. So she was a young lady who I wouldn't say was used to getting called down to my office, right, for different stuff, right? She didn't take no crap, right? So when I called her in, she knew it was something, right? So what we did was we had her mom come while she was in lunch, so she didn't know. So mom came. We got her to my office, and then we called her to my office, right? So she walks into my office with attitude, and she's like, what's up, right? It's like, listen, you having a bad day today, whatever, whatever, whatever. And she was like, no, I'm good, whatever. And I said, well, I kind of want to talk to you about your Regents exams.
Mm-hmm.
And she starts crying. She was like, didn't I? I failed. I'm not going to graduate, And in that moment, right, the defeat that was in her, right, it was in her mind. She had already failed, right? And she immediately was, but she had this tough exterior, like, I failed. And she was, she just started to cry. And she was like, I'm going to just take it again in the stomach. She was already making a plan, right? And then her mom came out on the side because my office was connected to another office. So my mom came out from the other office. And she looked up at her mother, and her mother started crying. And she was like, what's happening, right? And me and the assistant principal who was with me, we were like, babe, you passed. Oh my gosh, she just hit the floor, right? There are a lot of great moments in the DOE, but that one stands out to me the most, just because, like I said, when you first seen her, she felt she was defeated. She had already had it in her mind that she had failed. But when the look of surprise of, I did it, like I did it, you know what I'm saying? And that's just something you don't let go of that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And just that moment of you guys just celebrating that moment for her, she's going to remember that for the rest of her life, right? And I feel like we have to celebrate those moments more, because that's going to be what encourages other students to really strive, to reach levels, and to graduate high school and to go to college or just be successful in life. So that's a great moment.
It's those wins, right?
Those wins. So the opposite side of that, right? And I kind of prefaced it by talking about like the pandemic and coming back in and the challenges. What has been your biggest challenge, your most difficult experience as a school counselor, something you had to get over, and how did you get over it, to get through it?
Jerome, that question is emotional, right? Just because you see, when it comes to like something that you talk about, that's like great, right? And you can think of so many, and there's one that really stands out, right? There are so many moments that are heart-wrenching, right? That, as an educator, sometimes you can't help but to bring home. And I'm a mom, right? So I really can't think of one in particular, but, every time I have to call ACS, right? Every time I have to take pictures of bruises on a kid, every time, I have a kid that's hungry, right? You know what? Actually, I'm going to tell you this. This is one young man stands out to me. He was in 9th grade, right? I met him, and great young man. Can I just tell you, like, I don't like to use potential, but the potential, right? In this kid. And he didn't really talk to anybody, right? He wasn't that kind of kid, right? But I got in because I had snacks, right? So he would come to my office for snacks, and then he just got used to coming to my office, right? And then things started to change in him. He started to move a little differently, coming to school really late. And, and I had to talk to him or whatever the case may be. And, he had ended up joining a gang or whatever. Felt like, that's what he had to do or whatever. And that had changed his whole life. And there was one time where he didn't come to school for like, I want to say like a week or so, and we had to call home. We have to do all these kind of things, right? So finally he came into school, and before he goes to class, he comes right to my office, right? And I was like, where you been, right? And I have this thing, I hope I don't get in trouble, but I have this thing, like, I can't help but to like hug a kid. And he walked in my office and he needed a hug, right? Gave him a hug, right? And he stunk of like weed, marijuana, stale liquor. Like he's 15, you know what I'm saying? And I just hugged him, right? And he just started crying. And this was a tough little kid, right? He just started crying, right? And I locked my office door and I just let him cry. I just let him cry. And I just said, how can I help, right? What can I do? And he said, nothing, miss. There's nothing you can do, right? And I said, do you need money? Do you need help with something? Like, who can I turn to for you? And he's like, nobody, right? And I said, do you want to get out of the gang?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I can't.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I seen what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and I'd rather just stay than do what it takes to get out.
Mm.
Right. And my heart was broken for him, right? Because he made a decision at 14, right? He made a decision at 14 that at 14 looked glamorous. It looked like the right thing to do. It looked fun. It looked cool, right? But he didn't know everything it entailed, right? He he had no idea, right? Which he couldn't at 14, right? At 14, what do you really know?
No.
And here he was at 15, stuck, right? And there was nothing I could do, right? I couldn't offer him education. I couldn't offer him a snack. There was nothing I could do but let him cry in my office, right? Like I said, I'm a mother, right? I have a daughter and I have a son.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Brooklyn, right? Mm-hmm. So I saw him and I was broken.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got over it. I mean, I cried. Of course, I cried. I'm a feeler, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like counselor, the feeler. And I cried and I came home and I had to pray, right? I'm also a praying, I'm a praying woman, right? And I just had to pray and I just had to pray and I just had to pray that however God could help him, God would, right? And if there was a way, anything that I can do, that God would reveal it to me, right? And I don't know where he is now. To be honest, I haven't seen him again because that was actually right before COVID, right? And I haven't seen him again. I've never seen him again. But he's still on my prayer list, right? He doesn't even know, like you don't know who's there, right? But I have a list in my phone of the name of people and young people who I encounter as an educator who I faithfully lift up to God in prayer, and he's on my list, right?
I love that.
And I don't know if you ever get over it, right? You just move on. You just move to the next one and you just keep going, right? But I think that was probably the most heart-wrenching story.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think now more than ever, something that the pandemic showed us is in schools, we're more than just teachers or educators, right? We're counselors, we're therapists, we're, sometimes we, provide food, parents, we're everything.
We mom, we everything, we are. And it's a role that I gladly wear because I chose this career and I wanted it. I just need other people to really recognize that, right? That it's not being an educator is not a 9 to 5. It's not.
No, that's so true.
And if you are an empathetic person, you can't help but to bring it home with you, right? But it's how you bring it home with you, right? It's how you bring it home. Like I believe being an educator has made me a better parent, a better friend, right? So I'm grateful for all of those things. But all right, no, I'm rambling. Go ahead. Come on.
No, you're making a lot of. I was just gonna add to what you said, and it's just like, on top of that, I just think the pandemic showed that we need more support in those areas for our students, for our teachers, for everyone in the building. We need more support. Social workers, mental health therapists. We need more in the system because If we can't support students in that area, there's no way academically they're going to be set up for success, because they're dealing with so much outside of the school that they bring to the school that is heavy on them, whether they're in gangs, whether they're hungry, whether they're homeless, whether they're domestic violence, all that stuff was just increased during the pandemic. And if we don't support it, then we're doing them a disservice for sure.
We are doing them a disservice. And, you know, you're going through all of that, and it's just, you're 14, 15, 13, 12, like, who do you go to?
Yeah.
Who do you go to? Right?
Yeah. And as we have them every day in school, they come to us. So we got to provide the support in the school. Yeah. This is where we can get them to come in and support them. Because once outside of the school, and once they get to a certain age, it's a lot harder to kid them, because they start making decisions that, like joining gangs and things that are really hard to get out of, you know? Yeah, for sure. Next segment, I should say. So, and this is kind of piggybacks on this one. If you had one thing that you would change about the education system, just one thing, where would you start? What would it be and why?
I would like equal resources. Mm-hmm. Equal resources. I think that every school should have the same amount of resources, right? I've worked in several different schools, and the disparity in resources just makes a difference, right? It makes a difference, right? Like, we need counselors, right? And sometimes your school may need more than one. We need social workers, right? We need social workers, you know? We need programs, right? We need after school programs. We need things that are encouraging. We need to bring back like the arts, right? All those kind of things that kids could really start to really like show their skills, show their abilities, these things. And it all starts with the resources, right? So if there was one thing that I, you know, could tangibly change, it would be, can we just have equality in the resources on the positive end, right? Yeah. Don't let every school not have none, but let every school have what the best school has.
I love that.
I love that. Would make a difference. I think that would make a difference.
Great point. Great point. All right, last segment. I want you to think about your experience as a student in school. I would say K through 12, and who's a teacher, educator that you will give a shout out to, and why?
Oh yeah.
This one.
So I had an English teacher, Miss Wannen, who was amazing, right? Miss Wannen, like, she wore heels like every single day, right? And she was just like gangster before I knew what gangster was. You know what I'm saying? And she had this black afro, right? That just didn't go out of style, right? She was a tall Jewish woman, and can I tell you, she just like took me under her wing, right? And she was just kind of like, I would write different papers. Like, I grew up in a home where we always spoke about Black history and things like that. So whenever I wrote a paper in English, like I always had to drop in, as a Black woman, or what about Black history, and and she supported that, right? She supported that. And she kept pushing me to do more, pushing me to be more, right? She was one of the first people outside of my parents and my family who was like, you are a young, at the time I was younger, you are a young Black woman, and you need to make a difference, right? You need to make sure that your voice is heard, right? Don't let anyone like silence you, right? She was there, right? Miss Wannen, and I remember being in high school, and I remember she was only my teacher for like half the year, right? But she never forgot about me, right? Because she ended up moving to a different school and doing all these other things, but she always kept coming back and looking for me. You know what I'm saying? And and we actually connected, I think, during COVID on Facebook, right? And I was like, oh my God, Miss Wannen. And so she's like, when teachers tell you to call them by their first name, you're like, no, you are Miss Wannen forever, right? So I would have to say Miss Warren, my high school English teacher. She was phenomenal.
Shout
Really
out to
good.
Miss Warner. There's always that
Shout out
teacher
to Miss
that,
Warren.
yeah,
Big up, big up.
yeah, she went the extra mile. She made you see
She
your
did.
power,
She
and made
did.
you see your worth, and cared enough. I love that. Yes, thank you, Monique. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you so much.
Thank
I
you for
love your
having
stories. I
me.
love your insight and everything you share, and your passion really, really speaks through. So I appreciate
I
you
want
so
to
much.
thank you for having me. Your platform is very positive, and I'm just gonna put you on my prayer list that you just
Thank
blow
you.
up,
Thank
and
you.
this become a turnaround. You help to
Mhm.
change the educational system through your platform. But this was amazing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you guys for watching. Stay blessed. And remember, education over everything. Bye.
Bye.